All right, welcome back to the program. This is in the first hour here, and it's time to tell you about the Patriots VAC 746. The Patriots VAC 746 are on a mission to educate you about your gun rights. Here in Arkansas, specifically, we have constitutional carry, which is permitless carry. You don't need a weapon to carry open or concealed. Now, this is something that has been proven in courts. It's also been proven with prosecutors where people are wrongfully arrested. So bear in mind, you may get some flack if you do this, unfortunately. You may get pulled in, but every time that somebody gets arrested, they're arrested falsely. The prosecutors don't pursue the charges because they know what the law says, and the burden of proof is so high on the state, there's no way they can prove, because Act 746 of 2013 says that you have to have unlawful intent to use that weapon against another person. They have to be able to prove that, and they have a very difficult time proving that if you're just carrying a weapon, open or concealed. So, and not to mention, there is a real possibility that, and I think these police departments know this at this point, that civil litigation, if you begin to enforce what you think the law is when the law actually is something else, there will be municipalities sued for this. And it's not going to work out too well for you. Because all you got to do is look at what the judge said in the Taft case versus what these prosecutors have done by dropping charges and not pursuing them. There are some, unfortunately, there may be some that think, well, you may beat the charge, but you won't beat the ride. But we are going to have to just persevere through that. And eventually we will come to a consensus, and the people's voices will be heard here. So search for the Patriots VAC 746 on Facebook. Ask to become a part of that group today. And joining us from the Patriots is Mr. Dan Borum on the line. Dan, how are you, sir?
Hey, Paul, I'm very good this morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Sorry, we had a graphic snafu there. I'm doing good, Dan. Let me ask you. Last time I had you on, I think was the day after this meeting in June. I think on the 18th of June. And did you have a chance to watch that video where the lawmakers were apparently disagreeing with what the state police believe the law says?
Yes, sir. Have watched it numerous times now, and it every time it just leaves me, just with the wow factor. Every time I watch it, Paul.
What do you think is the biggest problem with the Arkansas State Police's argument here?
Well, the biggest problem is you'll notice Representative Payton, right off the bat, in the queue, asked him, "Do we have the right as Arkansans to carry a weapon, concealed or unconcealed, without a permit? Do we have that?" And we find that the director of the Arkansas State Police continued to go back to the concealed carry statute from 1995 and completely snubs his nose at, the law that came into play, what we refer to as Act 746, which is 573-120. He, along with his general counsel, refuses to acknowledge what Act 746 did. Mm-hmm. And so that's the biggest problem that we have, is they continue to go back and say, we have to go with what the governor tells us. Mm-hmm. And so they're just totally snubbing their nose at the law, Paul. So that's one of the biggest problems that we have. When it comes to law enforcement, you would think that the top director in the state concerning law enforcement would be the one to set the precedent of obeying the law and following the law. But yet we still have this problem of doing this waltz, this Texas two-step in the state of Arkansas, and frankly, we're getting our bellies full of it. We're tired of it.
I completely agree. What I would like to say to the Arkansas State Police is the 90s called, and they want their gun control policy back. This is 2019. The law was changed in 2013, and so this is ridiculous. I want to cut now to the video where I believe we've got Senator Terry Rice questioning Bill Bryant, the head of the Arkansas State Police.
That's right, concerning Taft.
Yeah, concerning the Taft decision. So, Joe, can you cue this up for us and go ahead and hit and whenever you're ready, just go.
I'm just going to there's enough questions being asked, but I was sent this. Do you agree or disagree with the judge's ruling on the Taft case that said merely possessing a weapon is not a crime in the state of Arkansas?
From visiting, I'm not an attorney, but visiting with my attorneys, they felt that case more addressed reasonable suspicion than it did concerning whether carrying a concealed weapon. But again, that's a novice from what my attorneys are advising me at the state police.
So what your attorney said a while ago, or somebody said, because it hadn't been tested, you can't go further in stating that. Y'all are waiting for it to be tested in court beyond this.
Besides just a lower court, we haven't got anything from the Arkansas Supreme Court.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, so Dan
Representative
Borum,
Womack.
what's your response to that?
That is amazing to me. The director, Colonel Bryant, said that his lawyers has advised him that dealt more with reasonable suspicion rather than a concealed carry or a Second Amendment issue, which is absolutely ridiculous. If you go back and read, anybody can pull it up and read, that Jamie Taft versus the state of Arkansas in the Court of Appeals, and read the entire document. Over and over and over again, it has reference to Jamie Taft described as a man who had a pistol in his waistband. When the officer pulled him over as he was walking, he was 2 miles away from the store where they had originally called in on him because of suspicious behavior. And he left the store and was walking toward the county line. He was 2 miles away when the deputy pulled him over, made a U-turn in on Highway 270, which is obviously a fairly dangerous highway, and turned his blue lights on. Well, at the moment that he turned his blue lights on, he detained him, whereas the officer was arguing that he turned the blue lights on for the purpose of safety, and I can understand that. But Taft doesn't know that, and so at that moment he believes that he is detained. And so, based upon a reasonable suspicion, okay, what is the reasonable suspicion? The reasonable suspicion, based upon what was told to the officers, were that he was walking in and out of the store and had a pistol in his waistband. And the officer said that upon pulling up on him, as Taft took a couple of steps away and then turned around and acknowledged the blue lights and faced the officers, put his hand toward his left pocket, and then was reaching around toward his right pocket. The officer then employed his weapon and told Taft to raise his hands. And then they began a search and seizure upon him. Well, that in itself is not reasonable suspicion. You have to have, there is some difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. And the reasonable suspicion, just at the mere fact of possessing a weapon, is not a case for reasonable suspicion.
According to the judge, too. I mean, that's indicted in the opinion.
That's right. In the Court of Appeals, the judge said that a mere possession of a weapon, according to 573-120, is not enough for reasonable suspicion to detain a man. Therefore, all of the evidence, even though yes, Taft was in the wrong on some things, but according to all the evidence, then would had to be considered as fruit from the poisonous tree, and it had to be suppressed.
Exactly. I mean, I've got it right here, page 9 of the decision. The state argued that Officer Davis seized Taft because he had to determine the lawfulness of Taft's conduct going in and out of the store and carrying that weapon and acting suspiciously. Merely possessing a weapon is not a crime in the state of Arkansas. And then it cites 573-120. A person commits the offense of carrying a weapon if he or she possesses a handgun on or about his person with the purpose to attempt to unlawfully employ the handgun as a weapon against the person. In general, merely possessing a handgun on your person does not violate 573-120 and may be done if it does not violate other laws or regulations. Under the clear language of Section 573-120, the possessor of a handgun must have an unlawful intent to employ it as a weapon against a person in order to make the possession a criminal act. That
Exactly.
is the meat of the decision. And that last sentence is actually, it sums it up. It's black and white. They want to say it was a Fourth Amendment issue, the police do, but they're hiding behind that.
Yes, they are.
And they're hoping that nobody actually goes and reads the opinion. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. And the officer himself said that that Taft had not committed any traffic violations or any criminal acts before activating the blue lights. So at the moment that he activated the blue lights, based upon even his own testimony, he violated. Yes, there was a violation of the Fourth Amendment. There's no doubt about that. But also, the reasonable suspicion was based upon the mere possession of a weapon, and that is not enough for reasonable suspicion in the state of Arkansas, as it has clearly been brought out in the Court of Appeals. And what we have in Colonel Bryant's testimony, along with General Counsel, is they're saying that his lawyers are telling him that that was a Fourth Amendment issue and had nothing to do with the mere possession of a weapon. And you're exactly right. They're hiding behind it. They do not want to admit the truth. And then we even have lawmakers, they're saying that Taft did not set case law. So what authority does the Court of Appeals have if it doesn't set case law?
Well,
it does set
and
case law.
And no one challenged it to a higher court. I mean, they let this lie.
Right.
They let this guy go. They threw out everything about it, and that's what's frustrating. We have so you have the Taft case. There's a lot of stuff going on here. You actually have the Arkansas State Police are in blatant defiance of all three branches of government, because you have the Attorney General. Okay, the Attorney General has issued an opinion, and it wasn't an opinion that I totally agree with, but she got the first part right when she said there is no statutory penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a concealed handgun permit. It doesn't exist. So then Leslie Rutledge says, okay, the legislature needs to provide clarity. Legislature comes, the people's representatives, the people's House and the Senate, and they pass two resolutions agreeing with the court case, citing the court case, and saying Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. You don't need a permit to carry a gun, open or concealed. Arkansas State Police now says we're going against the Attorney General's opinion. We are also going against and refusing to acknowledge the legislative action that took place. I know it was a non-binding resolution, but why do you need to pass more laws when you're just clarifying? Yeah, and then you have the Arkansas State Police ignoring the judicial opinion, saying, well, we need for this to be tested in court, when it's now in dicta in a circuit court opinion. So they are going against all three branches of government here. It's insane. Exactly.
And that is exactly right. And when you look at the qualifications of the judges in the Court of Appeals, the question of their authority, according to Amendment 80, Section 5, that the judges of the Court of Appeals have the same qualifications as Supreme Court justices. And the whole reason for the Court of Appeals was to take pressure off of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court was having so many cases come in, and the judges, and so the Court of Appeals came into play to help bring pressure off of them. That the fact that the Court of Appeals does not set case law is ridiculous. It does set case law, and we still, not only to the Arkansas State Police, but we still have legislators who do not understand, or they're not in the knowledge of the fact that case law has been set. And so now we have that, and there is no way that you can blatantly say that in the state of Arkansas we do not have constitutional carry, and yet right there, the director of the Arkansas State Police, General Counsel that was sitting beside him, said that in order to carry a weapon concealed in Arkansas, you must have a permit. That is just a slap in the face to all Arkansans. And I'm, not just me, but all across the state, from every corner of the state, We have had our belly full of it, and they continue to go back and say that we are a branch of the executive and that we have to do what the executive tells us to do.
I know.
Which that tells me that the executive then himself is ignoring the law.
No, he is. The governor is. He back during the Republican primary, he issued an opinion on constitutional carry that wasn't he called it constitutional carry, but he maintained this idea that if you want to carry concealed, you have to have a permit. And that's what the goal is. The Arkansas State Police wants this manufactured confusion so that they can get the legislature to revisit Act 746, take away some of our rights, with the goal to say, fine, you can open carry without a permit, but if you want to conceal carry, you're going to have to get a permission slip, and that will not happen. It will not fly. I don't think the legislature is going to do that in Arkansas, taking away your gun rights when we have this deregulation, this freedom that we've enjoyed since 2013.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to circumvent us, and really what they're trying to do is oppress us. I mean, that's what this is. This is oppression, Dan Borum.
Oppression, money, power. Follow the money. It always shows you the root of the evil. And one thing that frustrated me when I watched several times, I watched that interview at the Capitol with the Arkansas State Police, is that the lawmakers, while I was very proud of some of the lawmakers and some of the questions that they asked. I was proud of Senator Ballinger. I was proud of Senator Stubblefield, Representative Payton.
They did a good job.
Several, but they kept saying, so we need to clarify this. Dadgummit, Paul, it's clear.
Yeah,
it is so clear. It is so easy to understand, and I'm frustrated with the fact that they keep saying we need clarification. We have the clarification. Now let's just acknowledge it, and in the meantime, the Patriots of Act 746, we are going to continue to educate. We are going to build our power in numbers. We're going to continue bringing people on board, educate the masses, the citizens of the state of Arkansas, and we are going to come in force in this next legislative session, because we're going to have a big fight on our hands, Paul.
I think
because this is exactly what they want, is to get it back on the table, and they want to get their cash cow flowing again the way it was before. Because buddy, it's hard. It's hard when you have to when you get cut off the flow. It's hard to learn how to change your standards and live within your means.
Yeah, you're right about that. And everybody is saying this is about money, and yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Oh, and by the way, you're right. The lawmakers did a good job questioning them because they know what the law says, but they need to remove the word clarification out of their vocabulary.
That's right.
There's no reason to do that. We've already made so much progress in this fight. Okay, and the fact that John Payton a whole session ago got his act passed, which I think was Act 486 or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
The state police are completely ignoring that, by the way. Which
yes, they are.
We may need a whole other segment to talk about what that law said. But it reined in this argument about the concealed carry statute being trumping this new statute. But again, we're talking with Dan Borum from the Patriots of Act 746. Yeah, but they've got to remove this clarity. This word clarity from their vocabulary. I want to ask you a question. I asked it of Jim Ennis, your friend and fellow Patriot, last week. But yeah, it may be about the money, but is it racial too? I mean, because what I'm told, Dan, is that there are members of the Arkansas State Police that are telling lawmakers they're being told to enforce the law as it's actually written because they don't want civil litigation, and they know what it is. But publicly, the Arkansas State Police will not admit it. So my other question is it possibly a socioeconomic / racial issue where they don't want lower income individuals or maybe even it is specifically racial to know they have the right to carry?
Paul, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that definitely is a play into the whole thing. And what it does is it distinguishes and it separates a whole different class of citizens. Okay, if you have the money and you want to, and you can pay and go through all of this, then you can have this special privilege
Yes.
to carry, and while everybody else is not allowed because you don't have the money to do so. And frankly, we don't want you carrying because the lower class of citizens and certain and with different ethnicity groups, you are scarier, and we don't need you carrying weapons whatsoever. And so we only want a certain standard of people carrying weapons, and everybody else you're to do without. And so, yeah, I definitely believe that has a play in it.
Yep. Well, if that's the case, there is a window there to actually demonstrate to lawmakers how broad a support the idea of self-defense and the human right of self-defense is among people of all backgrounds, all races. And honestly, I think we've come a long way out of this Jim Crow era, and I don't think we need to we don't need to go back. So that's
no,
what
sir. No, sir. We don't need to be doing the Texas two-step here in the state of Arkansas. We need to accept the law as it is. What we are doing is we are taking back our God-given, natural-born, inalienable rights that was ours to begin with. We are not privileged by the government. The Second Amendment is not given to us for the purpose of hunting, for the purpose of even self-defense. The purpose of it was to restrain the government from infringing upon our God-given rights, and we need to take it back, and we need to let them know we're not going to take it laying down, that they're going to have a fight on their hands.
Dan Borum, we're out of time, sir. Thank you so much for being on the program. We appreciate it. It's always great to talk to you. God
Thank
bless
you, Paul. You have a great day, and God bless all of you.
All righty, you too, folks. Facebook.com, search for the Patriots of Act 746. We got to go. Back in a minute.